Hello, I want to talk about the CFMEU. I've been wanting to do this video for quite some time and I've been saying a bit kind of here and there, mainly on Twitter, but I was invited to the CFMEU Queensland Northern Territory Delegates Convention yesterday and thought maybe I'd wait until after that and, had a chat with some of the delegates there before releasing this video. So yeah, I'm filming it now. I've been wanting to talk about it for a bit.
So what can we do about it? And by we, I mean you, because I don't actually do too much. I just make PowerPoints. But yeah, I wanted to have a chat.
Before I start, I do want to give you some context to the CFMEU. The CFMEU members work in some of the hardest conditions in Australia, and for a lot of them, they've either seen or been affected by a mate dying on the job. These are people that didn't have to die on the job, but died because a boss just wanted a bit more profit and neglected some safety concerns. As a result, the CFMEU is an incredibly militant union, mainly because they don't want people dying on the job, also because workers deserve to be paid a fair wage. As a result of the CFMEU fighting for its members' interests, construction workers often get blamed for the housing crisis. This is just absolutely not true. As you can see, over time, construction costs have increased pretty much relative to CPI. However, house prices have not. The reason for this increase in house prices is not because construction workers are paid an okay wage, it's because of poor government policy over decades and decades. It's also because in Australia we've encouraged landlords to just hoard property and generate wealth by excluding society's access to the houses that they own and then just driving up rents, which increases property prices. The people that blame the housing crisis on construction workers' wages are landlords. Allegra Spender herself owns $40 million in property. She's one of the many wealthy landlords in Parliament that buy up all the available property and then make it more expensive and rent it back to workers to help pay off their mortgage. I do just want to say that someone with $40 million worth of property has absolutely no right to lecture us on the cost of living pressures. Also, the housing crisis in Australia has existed far longer than the CFMEU has. This is a quote from Charles Darwin in 1836 when he visited Sydney. He said, "The number of large houses and other buildings just finished was truly surprising. Nevertheless, everyone complained of the high rents and difficulty in procuring a house." Our housing crisis has existed since colonisation and since we made housing a profit-seeking exercise. The housing crisis has existed since landlords have. Anyways, back to the CFMEU. The stuff going on in the media at the moment can kind of boil down to three main allegations. The first allegation being that union officials are using their positions as union officials to enrich themselves personally. That's corruption. That's absolutely not on. That should never happen. A union official's role is to represent and fight for the union's members, not themselves. Using your position as a union official to enrich yourself is not on. And yeah, if that's what interests you about joining the union and becoming an official, this is not for you. This, as well as the second allegation regarding criminality within the union, has been rightfully condemned by the union. This is not on. Absolutely don't do that. The property industry is one of the most, if not the most, corrupt industry in Australia, so this kind of makes sense. The third main allegation is that there are ex-convicts within the union, and I want to talk about that a bit. The idea that a rich person not liking the way that you look or something that you did in your past doesn't make you any less of a worker. The CFMEU is a union where members get a second chance. I met with some delegates yesterday at the convention that had a really rough past and have done quite a few things that they regret. They have the union to thank, and they are incredibly thankful to the union for giving them a go and letting them turn their life around. Just because you've done something in the past, and you served your time, and you did your punishment, doesn't mean you should be excluded from society for the rest of your life. The CFMEU is a union that allows you to try again. Anyways, those are the three main allegations, two of which have been rightfully condemned, and I look forward to those investigations and those people getting kicked out of the union. But I want to talk about the timing of this. It's really interesting. It's no secret that property developers and builders who are represented by their lobby group, the Property Council of Australia, do not like the CFMEU. This is because the CFMEU makes sure that some of the multi-billion-dollar profits going to these property developers and builders actually get into the hands of the workers doing the work. Property developers and their lobby groups are one of the biggest political donors in Australia, and the Property Council of Australia donates approximately half of all their lobby amounts to the Labor Party. What we've seen recently in New South Wales is that when the Property Council tells the Labor government to do something, they do it. And recently, the New South Wales government forced public servants back into the office because the property developers were losing rents from their massive office blocks. And yeah, the Property Council claimed victory for this. Labor have known about corruption within the industry for years, but have chosen to attack the union rather than the corruption itself. There was certainly a time to condemn individuals within the CFMEU, particularly in Victoria, and that was probably when John Secker was before the courts facing domestic violence charges. Individuals within Labor instead chose to stand behind him. John Secker did achieve some amazing things for CFMEU members, but no union member should ever stand behind the things that he was accused of. I do want to say that everyone is innocent until they're proven guilty. However, John Secker did plead guilty to harassing his wife over text and also breaching a court order. This is also not the first time that Labor has attacked the construction union. Whenever the construction union gets too powerful in Australia, Labor breaks it up. In 1986, the Builders Labourers Federation, one of my favourite unions, was deregistered by the Labor government in New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT. You may have seen this guy on some flags around Melbourne. His name is John Cummins and he was the leader of the Victorian BLF. The government deregistered his union because of, similar things occurring. And he still represented its members, even though it was literally illegal for him to do so, and he was arrested a bunch of times. That man brought the union through a period of significant turmoil, just like this, and turned it into the CFMEU in Victoria. What was happening at the time, in the 80s, was that the unions were making the government embarrassed for not doing their job. The BLF was doing things like green bans, which is where just workers refuse to work on something that is not in the public's interest. So they refused to knock down public housing. They were conducting pink bans when gay members of the community were being persecuted or discriminated against. They just refused to work on sites where that was occurring. And they were one of the first organisations to support Aboriginal land rights. They were effectively telling the government that, hey, you're doing a shit job and we're going to have to step in and do it for you. Anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that I reckon the government is scared of what the CFMEU can do, and instead of allowing the working class to stamp out corruption within the union like the BLF did, they want to break it up, just like they did before. The Australian Labor Party does not stand with unions, it stands in their way. We should all be aware of the implications of the government's overreach when it comes to threatening to deregister a union, and the implication that this may have on the wider union movement. If Labor doesn't like your union, they might just destroy it instead of allowing us to fix it. As I said before, I had a really incredible opportunity to speak to delegates at the CFMEU Queensland Northern Territory Convention this year. And I asked them to think about something, and I'll show you a little clip.
And at the moment, it's a bit shit. So, I'll just leave you with one or two ideas. Take it or leave it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Anyways, now might be a good time to show you what's in here. Thanks for listening. Love you all. Now is a more important time than any to join your union. There's a link in my link tree if you want to do that. So yeah, thanks for listening.